It's time to shake out your money-making truth. You're listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloome, creating wealth from spiritual health on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Have you ever wondered why some people work really hard for their money while others live lives of joy and abundance with seemingly little effort? You are about to learn powerful, tangible steps to shifting your mindset and connecting to your flow of money and abundance. Jennifer teaches you to connect to who you are at a soul level and how to use that connection to create a personal and specific relationship with money. Learn how money is a powerful tool to achieve your desires and your desires to then serve the world. So shake out your money-making truth right now. Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloome.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Jennifer Bloome, host of Soul Wisdom Abundance, Create Wealth Through Spiritual Health here on Transformation Talk Radio. As always, I am super excited to be in this space with you. And if you are here for the first time listening, I'm really glad that you found your way here. If you are somebody who has been a longtime listener, I'm glad that you're coming back. Glad to know that the content is helpful. But hey, you know what? Whether you are new here or whether you are somebody that's been listening for a long time, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know about what you think about the content that's coming at you. I'd love to know what you want to know more about. Probably the easiest way to do that is join me over on Instagram at soul.abundance and DM me. Let me know kind of what you're thinking about, what kinds of topics around money and divinity and soul are you interested in? And I will bring them to you. So I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. All right. So this is a podcast that's all about doing money differently and doing it in such a way that really allows lasting peace, lasting ease, and of course, a really nice flow through your bank account. Now, typically, I have a guest on these podcasts, but today I'm going to do a solo show, and I'm excited about it. This allows us to really dive into something and really get some juicy content going. I did a show several months ago. I did another solo show, and it was around the topic of receiving. And I want to do a follow-up on that. Now, you don't have to have listened to that show in order to get all the stuff that you to understand what's happening in this show. Although if you want to, you can go back. Like I said, the episode was back in June, and that'll help you. You can learn some more about that aspect of receiving. Today, what I really want to focus on is the concept of divine receiving. And if you really want to create a change in your bank account, if you really want to do something in a brand new way with money, one of the things that you can do is to start to focus on remembering that all of the receiving that we're doing is coming because it is coming through from the divine. Now, I use the word divine. You can use God, goddess, nature, universe, source, whatever it is that your language is for that which is bigger than us. You can insert when I talk about the divine. But no matter what you call it, doing money in a new way to really be effective with it requires a paradigm shift. A lot of times I think we take these concepts of creation and manifestation and all of the new agey kinds of things, and we try to use those principles in our sort of normal day-to-day lives, with all of the rules that we have thought about with money, or any other place where we receive. And it just doesn't, it works to a certain extent, but it doesn't really create a huge shift and change. And what we're doing when we're creating this paradigm shift into divine receiving is really claiming our own divinity. Now, I've heard from some people that it feels like, it feels like a backward step. Oh, so I'm just supposed to sit back and just surrender and shrug my shoulders and say, it's all on God's shoulders. It's all on God's timing. Right. I've never been one to use the phrase "let go and let God." I understand what people are saying when they use it. I use different language, and that's not what we're talking about here. All right. It's not about giving up control, so to speak. We'll talk about control in a little bit. And it's not about giving things over. It's about using our free will in a way such that we understand that, yes, we are human beings walking around on this planet, but that there is a part of us that is still a piece of divinity. So we take this piece that is divine and we take this piece that's human and we knit them together in such a way that we really effectively work with the divine part of ourselves. And when we do that, magic happens. It's just really phenomenal. And we begin to be able to work with money in a way that, again, really ultimately gives us a lot more peace of mind. It takes off the emotional load. There's a lot more ease. There's a lot less worry. Okay. So that's what I want to dive into today. And we'll get through pieces of it. And there's always more to learn about it, always more to think about it. But the perspective I want to work with today is that in order to work with divine receiving, we have to understand more about the concept itself. But even more than that, we have to understand what our own internal rules are about receiving, and then understand what the truth about receiving truly is. And that's what today's show is all about. It's about being able to lay the groundwork, lay the rules internally so that you can participate in divine receiving. Now, in order to have the conversation, there's a couple of foundational comments that I want to make. And the first is, this is a podcast. I'm sharing a lot of information, right? That's the whole purpose of podcasting. And yet I'm going to ask you to listen not only to what you're hearing, but to notice what you're feeling in your body as I'm talking. You might find that some of the things, and maybe some of the things I've already said, kind of tweak you a little bit. Maybe they create a little tension in your body. Maybe they create a little bit of discomfort. And the reason for that is that it's not that I'm saying something that's offensive, but it's because I'm saying something that is bumping up against one of your internal rules. Our bodies are designed to keep us safe and alive. And one of the ways it does that is it has a systems of rules and beliefs. And that's one way to sort information that's coming in and out into our beings. And those rules make it really easy for our bodies to help us understand something. So, something like, don't touch that hot stove, don't step out in front of that speeding car. Those are pretty obvious rules about keeping us alive and safe. But we also have rules like, make sure to do your best so that everybody loves and appreciates you. Right? That might be a rule that you have. And so if I'm starting to say, don't work so hard, it's going to bump up against that particular rule. Your body's going to kind of start to flash danger signals. And the way it does that is by creating a feeling of stress in your body. So you might get a knot in your belly or tension in your shoulders or under your shoulder blades, kind of wherever you feel discomfort. So my intention isn't to share such different information that your body is in this danger mode all the time. That's not the point. But notice when you do feel that tension, it's a signal that you are believing something different than what I'm saying. And it actually is a really good sign, because it means that you've got some old rules that if they get tweaked, you can slip into this divine receiving in a much more gentle way. Okay. The next foundational piece to have before I really start the conversation is that you're going to hear me use the words create and receive of course, we've already talked receive multiple times. You're going to hear me use those words throughout the conversation today. And those are intentional words. Again, if you read a lot of New Age creation and manifestation, those are words that are there. But I really want to contrast those words with how we usually think of things. For example, we have really become a culture of makers, making things happen, making things work, making sure that we get what we want. We've also become a culture of earners. I have to earn my way in this world. I have to earn my worthiness. I have to earn my right to have what I want. And we all have reasons why we hold on to those rules. I don't want to be entitled. I want to make sure that the other shoe doesn't drop. I want to make sure that I'm a really good person. Those kinds of things, right? But the problem is that we've become this culture of really exhausted humans. It's hard to do things the way that we're doing them because we are going outside of our human nature. We are wired to be receivers. We can set whatever rule we want. We have plenty of free will. That's just fine. But in these areas of making and earning, it creates a lot of pain and suffering. And we just don't have to have that. So using the words create and receive very intentionally. Now, as we get into the conversation, one of the things that might pop for you is, okay, we're talking about receiving. Do I never take another action step ever again? Am I just supposed to sit on the couch and imagine that all my stuff is raining down on me? And the answer to that is no. There is going to be plenty of action to take. But what I want you to listen for is the fact that this action is going to start coming in new ways. The come from, your intention behind that action is going to be different. And that's what's going to create a lot more peace and ease in what you do. All right. Beautiful. So lay the groundwork. And what we're doing today is talking about the changing rules so that we can slip into divine receiving. One of the easiest ways to do that is to really truly understand the rules that we already are running. So let's do a quick exercise. And this is going to, like I said, this is going to help you understand what the rules are that you already have set up within your being in order to allow yourself to have what you want. Okay. And all right, well, let's just start, and then I have one more thing to say. So if you're someplace where you can close your eyes, I'm going to invite you to that, or you can just sort of soften your gaze if you're walking and listening to this podcast. Do what you can do to come more internal and take a couple of nice deep breaths. And I'm going to ask you to think about something that you have wanted for a while, but you don't have yet. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions. They're all about this. They're really the same question, as to ask in a little bit different way. And just notice what comes up. All right. The one other instruction, and this is an instruction I don't give very often, and that is, I'm going to ask you to imagine that you can connect with your whiniest self, that part of you that's frustrated and tired and has been at this for a long time and is just about had it. Okay, so connect with that part of you and think about what it is that you want. And here come the questions. If you were to say, but I've already done XYZ, I should have what I want by now. What does XYZ represent for you? But I've already done XYZ. I should have what I want by now. What would XYZ be? Or said another way, I am so tired of doing XYZ, or I'm so tired of being XYZ and still not having what I want. Or why do they have what they want? They're not doing XYZ. They're not being XYZ. They have what they want, but I don't have what I want. Or one last way to word the question in a not so whiny way is, in order to have what I want, I have to ... And how would you fill that in? So just take a little bit of time with that, see what comes up. What comes up for a lot of people are things like, I've really been busting my butt. I've worked really hard and I'm tired of working really hard and not getting what I want. Or I have to be a good girl. I have to do the right things. I have to follow all of those rules my parents taught me. I'm tired of it. Or I have to be polite. I have to be willing to sacrifice myself for others. And when I ask those questions in a class or I ask them with my clients, that's kind of the language that comes up for people. So I'm curious if that's resonating with you. Because when we boil down what the typical rules are for getting what we want, it really comes down to 3 words. And these 3 words or concepts have just been baked into our consciousness in every possible way, from our parents, our teachers, our most loved ones, books, movies, you name it. That's, it's where all this has come from. And the 3 words are worthy, right, and good. I have to work hard. You have to prove yourself. You have to do what's right. You have to be good. And you have to do and do and do and do for other people. And then you're eligible for what you want. And when you've done these things, when you've worked hard, when you've proved yourself, when you've done what's right, you've now earned what you want. So earn could actually go in that category of words: worthy, right, good, earn. And a lot of us have what I might call an if-then relationship. If I do this, then the divine will reward me. If I work hard, then I can be sure that what I want is going to stick around. If I really work hard and earn my stuff, then I'm going to be protected from bad things. Okay, there's all kinds of pieces that are woven through here, but it, as I said, boils down to worthy, right, and good. And working just super hard. So imagine, if you will, this is the image that I have whenever I talk about this, is being a person, but you're wearing one of those huge wooden yokes like you would see with an oxen cart, right? Old-fashioned cart, and you're yoked to this cart that's behind you. And that cart is just weighed down and you are working really hard. You can see up ahead that there's a finish line, right? You've got to get that cart over the finish line in order to have what you want. So you're plugging along and you're working really hard and you're pulling really hard, but it's a little bit like that proverbial carrot that's out in front. It's never attainable. That finish line keeps moving. So you never become worthy. You never earn, you never prove exactly. And so you're always in the space of feeling like you haven't done enough. Right? Worthy, right, and good. Those are the old rules for creating what you want. And the reality is that's a myth. Even if you can think of 100 examples from your own life where you have had to be worthy, right, or good, it's still a myth. And it's a myth that's been embedded into not just money, but every aspect of your life. Do you want to have good health? Well, no pain, no gain. Prove yourself, take the right steps, have the right nutrition, have the right exercise. Ooh, haven't gotten the health you want? It's your fault. You haven't worked hard enough. Or if you want a good relationship, sacrifice. It's better to give than receive. Do you want a full bank account? Work 80 hours. Put your nose to the grindstone. Prove that you've earned it. Don't have what you want? Must not be good enough. Right? Really pushing this point hard. And, you know, people will ask why, how did this come to be such a myth? And I don't know. I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist, but on the other hand, it makes you a really good employee. It makes you really productive. It's really good for the people who are in charge, who have the money and the resources to keep asking for all of these rules, but then kind of moving the carrot around. But I think that, you know, truly especially where we are today, it comes from people who love us. And it seems at odds that they would share a myth. But here's the thing. This is how they knew how to get what they wanted. And they want to make sure that you get what you want. So they pass those rules on. And then those rules get embedded into our subconscious. And then if we go on to have children, or we influence, or, you know, have any sort of contact with any other person on this planet, right? We're saying things, doing things, leading experiences that continue to bake, so to speak, the concepts of worthy, right, and good into our consciousness. And, you know, in the end, it doesn't really matter, I suppose, where the myth comes from, but it's just shown up as our truth. The reality is that, like I said, it isn't truth. It is a myth. And this is where we get to ask the question, what's the real rule? And I would say there are only two rules. It's actually one and then a corollary. All right. So the first rule is to be a soul. Pretty simple. Be a soul. You are worthy and eligible for all that you want because you are a soul walking around on this planet. That's it. It's really, really simple. You are a drop of the ocean that is divinity. And again, use whatever language works best for you. Your specific drop carries everything of the divine. So you are inherently worthy. You'd never, ever in a million years walk up to God and say, hey, God, you feeling worthy today? Right? It makes me chuckle every time I say that. Because you can hardly even get the words out. It's such a ridiculous statement. And because you are a drop of that same divinity, you hold that same possibility. It's not even a possibility, reality, right? You are worthy. So let's go back to the analogy about with the worthy, right, and good. And let's go back to that analogy of being yoked up to that really heavy cart and the finish line that you just never get to. When you play by the divine's rules, which is you're a soul, you are worthy and deserving because you're a soul walking around, you're already on the other side of the finish line. Always. That's where you start. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be anything. You just simply get to stand on the other side of the line. So when you do that, think about how that would impact everything in your day-to-day life. Okay? But before we even do that, I'm going to ask you to check in with yourself and say, if this is true, or better said, since this is true, what do you get to let go of to allow yourself to step into this truth? What are those beliefs about yourself or beliefs about what you need to be in this world do you get to drop? And we're going to do another exercise here in a moment. But just start imagining that this is possible. because it's not, again, it's not possible. It's reality. So when you're in this knowing space, when you are in this understanding, you get to remember that you have access to all the resources of divinity. Those resources are unlimited. Everyone gets what they want without making someone else have less. And listen, as I say all of this, I get flashes of all of the awful things going on in the world around us. And I think this is one of the more difficult things when when we're really working to bring divine receiving into our being is, well, wait a minute, there's just so much awful stuff in the world. How can this possibly be true? But remember, we have millennia of rules. We have millennia of people forgetting this reality. We have millennia of people wanting to have more power, more control, and they create their own rules, which gets baked into the culture. And there's so much, when you have generation after generation after generation of poverty, or generation after generation after generation of oppression, it's really hard not to look at all of that. But the thing is, in order to make changes in all of those systems, we have to come back to this knowing that we are all equal and we all have access to the same resources, simply because we're a soul walking around on this planet. Okay. Now, the next part of that is, if we're not getting what we want through hard work or enterprise or proving or earning, how are we getting what we want? And that brings us to the second rule, or it's really a corollary. And that is that we are receivers. So the two rules are, I am a soul and I am a receiver. There's no proving, no earning. It's simply a matter of learning, remembering truly how to receive. Okay. One of the pieces of information that's really helpful here is, you think about, okay, so I'm a soul and I'm supposed to receive. Divine resources are unlimited, but they're in the divine, they're intangible, right? When they're in that divine flow, how do I get money in my bank account? What you want to remember is that the resources of the divine come to us through other people, through experiences, through ideas. The divine is literally resourcing its own energies through other people. So every client is, if you're running your own business, every client is a resource of the divine. Every dollar bill in your wallet is a resource of the divine. Every experience that you have was orchestrated through lots of resources of the divine. Every idea that you have is coming through your divine connections. Okay. So again, remembering, you're not making things, you're not making money, you're receiving it. You're not making things happen, you're receiving those experiences. It's a complete and total paradigm shift. And it isn't just in the arena of money. It's in our health, it's in our relationships, it's in our day-to-day work. Okay. And when you start to focus on, instead of how do I make something happen, how do I make my bank account explode with dollar bills, how do I make this love relationship, how do I make my body the way I want, when you focus instead, when your main focus then comes on how you're going to receive it, that's when the whole world starts to open up for you. Okay. We are literally always receiving. The divine is always offering us resources. And I will talk more about that in a little bit. But this, I think, is a really good time to take a break. You're listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance here on Transformation Talk Radio. And when we come back, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you an exercise that is going to help to integrate all of this information that I've been sharing and to help you understand how to bring it into your day-to-day life. So stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I am your host, Jennifer Bloome. We're here with Transformation Talk Radio, and we've been talking. I've been talking, since this is a solo show, I'll take the we out of it. I have been talking all about divine receiving and giving you a lot of concepts, a lot of theory. We've done one exercise. I want to start this part of the show out with an exercise, so that you can really begin to integrate all of these pieces that I'm sharing with you. So, all right, again, if you're someplace where you can close your eyes, I'm going to invite you to do that. If you are driving or walking or something and that's not safe to do, just connect internally, and you can always do this exercise later. So here's what we're going to do. Let's ask divine intelligence to integrate body and soul. Ask divine intelligence to align your earth star and your heaven star so that your energetic channel becomes nice and straight. And then allow your consciousness to drop down into your heart center. Just imagine that your thinking brain can drop right down into the center of your chest, right into the center of your heart. And breathe from here. And I'm going to ask you to review these new truths. And the two truths are that the rule for getting what you want is twofold. First, you simply have to be a soul. All you have to do is be a soul walking around on this planet to be worthy of everything that you want. And that what you want comes through you receiving experiences, receiving resources, divine resources through other people, receiving ideas. And that your literal focus gets to shift from how do I do X, how do I do Y, how do I do Z, to simply ask the question, how do I receive? And I'm going to ask you to feel the truth of this in your body. And if you feel some tension around it, that's okay. That's kind of what this exercise is about, actually. But notice that truth in your body. And the first question we get to ask is, what's going to change for you? What's available to you if you let the old myths go? What's going to change in the area of how you approach your health, how you approach your wealth, your relationships, your business or your job, or even just that mental, emotional load that we all carry? What gets to change? How are you lightening your load here? I'm going to ask you to simply breathe in that truth and anchor it as best as you can. And then I'm also going to ask you to check in and ask yourself, what fears and worries are coming up? What are the yeah buts that come up as a result of working to take on these new truths? All right. So let's say thank you to our bodies and mind and soul for giving information. And you can always come back and redo these exercises if you need a little bit more time. But for the time being, allow yourself to come back. And I just want to offer a couple of things that, the concept of divine receiving can bring up a lot of fears. It can bring up questions like, well, I'm a control freak. I like to know when and how and what my plan is. How am I going to reconcile that with sitting back and receiving? Or, I knew the old rules really well. I might be an exhausted human with not as much money in my bank account as what I want, but at least I knew what to do. How do I just all of a sudden learn new rules? Or it seems a little out of balance to focus only on receiving. Isn't there giving involved too? Or something along the lines of, wow, and I mentioned this, I guess, at the beginning of the show too, but how can I just rely on the divine? That seems so outdated. I know more, right? I have so much more knowledge. How can I just give it to God? So these are thoughts and beliefs that you want to pay attention to. We don't want to just sort of shove them down and not give them voice. But at the same time, as you acknowledge them, what you want to do is flip yourself again into that space of, what's the new story? What do I get to have? What do I get to have as a result of taking on these new truths, these new rules? And to begin to challenge some of those old fears that come up. Maybe it's a way in terms of control. Maybe it's simply a new way of learning how to take control of the process, meaning really learn how to learn how to open up those receivers, learn how to let go of old beliefs. That is the way to, quote, control in this new set of, with this new paradigm. It's not about trying to control circumstances so that you get what you want, but rather you are controlling, again, that's in quotes, it's a hard word, your energy. Okay. You're going to learn, again, as you look at these old beliefs and challenge them, you're going to find new ways of being in the giving and receiving cycle, because absolutely that's a piece of it. And you're going to learn what it really means to be in partnership with divinity. And this is one of the reasons why I love money as a teacher, because you get to play in that soul money relationship, and you really get to learn how to interweave you and the divine and the energy of money in a way that's super tangible. You can see what the impact is on your bank account when you make a change in your beliefs or your behaviors. You can feel the difference in the level of peace or stress in your body based on what rules you're following. Okay, so some of this is simply acknowledging that there are those old fears are based on the old ways of what you were doing, and you're going to be able to satisfy those old rules by learning something new. Now, the other piece of that is, if they're buried really deeply, this is where you want to reach out to a practitioner that works with some sort of release mechanism. Release, that's not the word I wanted to use. Release technique, right? My favorite is EFT and emotional freedom technique. I love using that. Work with it with my clients all the time, to be able to take out of the body, like literally remove from the body the old beliefs, and literally be able to bring in the new beliefs of what you want. Okay, so the basics of what I really want to say here is, it's okay if you've got fears coming up. It's okay if you have worries coming up. There's ways to work with those. Okay. But the one thing that I really want to share with you, that's at the heart of divine receiving, I say that you're worthy simply because you exist. right? You're a drop of the divine ocean, and your drop is inherently worthy because it carries the same worth as the divine. Inherent in divine receiving is a deep sense of your own worthiness. The divine is literally flowing us resources all the time. When we get into a place of not feeling worthy, not feeling like we can accept anything, it's as if we are putting our hands up and saying, no, don't flow those resources to me. I'm not worthy. No, no, and no. So that is the really deep work of divine receiving, is to be able to have that part of you that says fully and completely, I love and accept myself. And I know that if you're someone who's a little bit on the outside of this, it can sound ridiculous that that is the key to having what you want. But it is a huge, huge key of turning on our receivers. Instead of being blocked and saying, nope, the only way to do it is with my action and my earning. Instead, I'm going to turn on what it is that I want and open and receive, open and allow things to flow for me. So what I would like to do here is let's see about embodying this even more completely than what we did in the previous exercise. All right. So let's have you, again, if you can close your eyes, please do that. Take a couple of deep breaths. And again, we ask divine intelligence to integrate body and soul on your earth star and your heaven star. Allow your consciousness to drop down into your heart center. And as you do this, ask to be shown where the core of you remembers this truth. In other words, where does this truth live in your body? And as you find where it lives in your body, imagine that you can breathe into this area. Breathe into this truth. And as you breathe in, you're allowing this truth to expand. And as you continue to breathe, that truth expands throughout your body, and breathing in, it expands. And as you breathe out, you're releasing any part that's offering up resistance. So just imagine that if you are bumping up, so let's imagine that you're allowing this truth to expand, but you find that maybe you can't bring it from the chest up or something. What you're doing, or what's happening, is you're bumping into an old rule. So imagine that you can allow the truth to begin to simply dissolve that away, just as best as you can. So when you breathe in, you're expanding the truth, and as you breathe out, you're releasing anything that you're dissolving. So continue to breathe and expand, and fill yourself with this truth that you are a receiver, that you are worthy. And allow it to fill not just your body, but imagine it can come out and fill all the layers of your etheric body. And of course, there are parts of you that are like, yeah, I know. You don't have to tell me. I know. So then from this place of being full of this wisdom, full of this knowing, turn your eyes, again, keep them closed, but imagine that you can look around you. And just as if you could see all of the oxygen in the air, right? If you had vision that allowed you to see all that oxygen, you would see not only the oxygen, but you would see all this resources of source, all the resources of the universe, right? And oxygen is actually one of those resources. Okay. But just imagine that you're swimming in a sea of resources. It's all right here, ready for you to open and receive it. And as you sit in this beautiful space, I'm going to ask you to reflect back to what we talked about at the beginning of the class. We did the exercise and I asked you to think of something that you have wanted for a really long time. So as you bring that desire into the space of knowing that you're worthy, into the space of being a receiver, ask the divine what your next internal step is, meaning what's your next being step? What sort of emotion should you hold? What sort of feeling state should you hold in order to allow this to happen? And second, what is your next external step? Right. And knowing that you can come back and ask those questions again, let's thank your body, let's thank the divine, and bring yourself back fully and completely back into this moment. Okay. So I'm going to invite you to keep playing with these concepts. And I'm going to remind you that the way to work with these new rules is to remember to accept yourself as divinity. The divinity isn't something just outside of you, it's something inside of you. And it's simply a matter of learning how to work with this in a brand new way, learning how to speak the language of the divine, unwinding what you thought you knew and feeling safe enough to release it, and then being open to receive all that you desire. And if you just took one first baby step, it would be about opening more to the divine in a brand new way, opening to it inside of you, not out here, but inside of you. And I get that that can be a challenge. So I offer a number of resources and would love to talk with you about providing assistance for that, if that is something that you were interested in. Okay, you can reach out to me. Again, probably the best way to do that, soul.abundance, DM me, and let's chat. Okay, but for now, remember that you are a drop of that divine ocean, and you are worthy of receiving all that you want. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Soul Wisdom Abundance. I'm Jennifer Bloome, and I help people heal and awaken their soul money relationships so that you can have lasting peace and abundance. And if you want to learn more about your soul money relationship, one fun way to do that is to come to the website, jenniferbloome.com. There's a quiz that's going to help you understand the different aspects of the soul money relationship. And you're going to learn which of those for you could require a little bit more connection. And I'll give you an exercise to do that. All right. The other way to do that is to keep tuning into the show, which is the first and third Friday of every month. And we will have a lovely guest next time. I'm looking forward to sharing that person with you. And until then, I offer each and every one of you prosperous blessings. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloome, creating wealth from spiritual health on transformationtalkradio.com. To learn more about Jennifer Bloome or listen to past shows, visit jenniferbloome.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on any of your favorite podcasting outlets. Simply search Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloome.